So good morning. Good morning on this Erev Pesach as we turn to Yevamos Daf Lamed Tet. We are at the very bottom of Lamed Chet Amud Bet, 2 lines up from the end. I'm going to share my screen. And yesterday we learned a Mishnah that included a debate between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. It talked about, the Mishnah discussed whether a deceased husband's heirs, so for example, we have Reuven married to Rachel, and Reuven has other brothers that will inherit his property. And the question is, will those brothers have some ability to inherit from property that is owned by Rachel, because Rachel has a Zika relationship with those brothers. Namely, those brothers have an obligation to perform either Yibum or Chalitza with Rachel. And so that is considered almost like a relative. Almost like somebody who's married, almost, that's not quite. And so the question is what kind of power exists in that relationship? And so, during this waiting period, we said that the widow, Rachel, who's called a Shomeret Yavam, she has a Zika relationship with her deceased husband's brothers. And in the Mishnah, we saw that if Rachel inherits property, she has the right to do whatever she wants with it. If she dies before Yibum and Chalitza, then Beit Shammai says Reuven's heirs split Rachel's estate with the heirs of Rachel's father. And Beit Hillel says, no, the property remains with those who possess it. So the ksuba goes to Reuven's heirs, and the property that Rachel brought to the marriage goes to her father's heirs. Okay, and so that was the Mishnah. Now the Gemara asks, there seems to be an inconsistency in Beit Shammai here. The inconsistency is that when Rachel is alive, we treat the property as fully Rachel's, with no rights whatsoever for Reuven's family. Well, if that should mean that if she dies, it all goes to her family. But instead, Beit Shammai said that when she dies, the Reuven's family gets a piece of the property that is considered her inheritance. So we provided 2 answers to this question yesterday. The first was Ula. Ula said that the first part of the Mishnah involves where Rachel was only an Arusa, just Kedushin had happened, and so as a result, she is not fully married, and therefore, when you have a Zika of an Arusa, she has the complete control over her property. But the second case involved Nesuin, and so when you have a Zika of a Nesuin, so then there is a greater connection for the husband's family to her estate, and so as a result, they get to collect a piece of it. Rabbah didn't like that because he said that there's no reason to kill her, to have her not be alive in the second half, because the same argument could be had in connection with Ula. The same argument could be had in connection with the Rachel being alive, So Rabbah says, no, that's not going to be the case that we're talking about. We're going to talk about the case of, we're going to say that the case definitely involves Nesuin in both cases. And that the problem is that the Zika of a Nesua is like a case of uncertainty. And so now that she's alive, when she's alive, so she herself has a certain claim, so she has full control. Because we say that an uncertain claim cannot take away anything from a certain claim. And so, but when she's dead, So now her father's heirs and her husband's heirs have comparable uncertain claims to her inheritance. And so therefore, Beit Shammai says they split, and Beit Hillel says that it all stays where it is. Now, Abaye is now going to offer a third explanation. And so that's where we're going to start with Abaye Amar on the bottom of Lamed Chet Amabet. So Abaye Amar, Reisha, so the first case where she's alive, that is where the money fell to her, her inheritance came to her when she was already a Yavam. She was already, Reuven had already died. And so that's why it is totally in her ability to decide what she wants to do with it. Seifa the Navula Kishehi Tachtav. But in the Seifa, where Reuven's family gets a piece of the action, so that's where she inherited it before Reuven died. Tachtav Debal, excuse me, where she was still under her husband's control, meaning that Reuven was still alive. Because Savar Abaye Yado Yada, and Abaye felt that her hand, that the husband's hand, excuse me, is identical to her hand. So whatever she could do, her husband could do. So now Rava disagrees with this. Amrle Rava idenafli la kashehi tachtav debal the kuli amalo pligi diyado avdifa miyada. That doesn't make any sense because everybody seems to agree that if she inherited the properties while she was married to the husband, so then the husband's hand would be actually stronger than her hand, because what let's work through Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai according to Abaye, because it's not in the Gemara, so let's talk through, and this is based on Rashi. So Beit Hillel would say that the husband and wife have equal rights in the property that Rachel inherited. So when dealing with Rachel as a Zika, so then the husband's family's rights go down one level. Therefore, all property stays where it is. The property that Rachel inherited goes back to her father's family, while the ksuva stays with Reuben's family. And Beit Shammai would say that the husband has greater rights in the property that Rachel inherited. And so when dealing with when Rachel is a Zika, the husband's family rights go down one level to being on par with Rachel's family, and therefore the two families split the assets. But the problem with this explanation, as we just said, is that Beit Hillel also would say that the property rights of the husband is greater than Rachel's. And so as a result, that this does not adequately explain, according to Rava, the difference between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Ela idi ve'idi denaflu la kashehi shomeres yavam. Rather, Rava now offers answer number 4. Actually, we're both talking about cases where Rachel receives her inheritance after Reuven dies, and Reisha de lo avad ba mamar. But in the first case, her Reuven's brother Chaim never did mamar. Never actually indicated that his intention to perform yibum. Whereas Seifa de avad ba mamar, in the end of the case, the second case, we say that in fact he did perform ma'amar with her because of a Rava ma'amar leBeit Shammai osef vadei arusa usafek nesua. And Rava holds that according to Beit Shammai, it makes the Yevamot, it makes Rachel like she is a definite arusa and a possible nesua. What does that mean? It means that vadei arusa lidchos bitsara, that it makes her a definite arusa with regard to eliminating possible co-wives. So for example, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven is married to Rachel. Shimon is married to Shira. Rachel and Shira are sisters. And Reuven now dies without children. Levi performs mamar to Rachel. And now Shimon dies without children. Now, if Levi had not done mamar, everybody agrees that both of the women go out, and you can't do yibum to either of them because they are sisters, and so as a result you are stuck, and you don't even do chalitza, and so if I remember correctly, and so whereas in this case, in the case of if in fact Levi has done mamar according to Beit Shammai, that is sufficient, so that now although Levi is going to marry Rachel, Shira goes free. She doesn't have any obligation to do. There's no obligation to do yibum. There's no obligation to do chalitza, because Levi effectively is already married to Rachel. Because Levi is already married to Rachel, Shira's sister, so Shira goes out without any yibum. That is consistent with the very first teaching of the very first Mishnah in our Masechet. And the only difference is that Beit Shammai says that not only does it apply when Levi is married to Rachel, it also applies when Levi has done ma'amar to Rachel. That is not Beis Hillel's position, and then of course that's not how we paskin, but that is Beit Shammai's position. Usfeik nesua l'chalak b'nechasim, and it makes, and in terms of what ma'amar does, it makes Rachel viewed as a possible nesua, not a definite nesua, because then the husband would have greater control, but a positive nesua, and therefore the brothers' inheritors, namely his brothers, Reuven's inheritors, namely Reuven's brothers, and Rachel's father's inheritors will now split the estate. They'll split the property that belongs to Rachel. Okay, so that is how Rava explains. So Itmar Mishmei the Rabbi Elazar Kavase to Rava. In the name of Rabbi Elazar was explained the same interpretation as that Rava offered. The Itmar Mishmei the Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina Kavase to Abaye. And Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, he gave the interpretation just like Abaye. Umiyama Rabbi Elazar Hachi. But 1 second, you just said that Rabbi Elazar said like Rava V'ha'amar Rabbi Elazar Ma'amar l'Beis Shammai Eina Kona Ella Lidchos Mitzara. That when it comes to Ma'amar, according to Beis Shammai, Rabbi Elazar says that it only allows the pushing off of a tzara bilvad. That's the only thing. Oh, that's the only thing. We just said that according to Rava, it also makes a suffix nesua l'chalak b'nechasim. So the fact that Rabbi Elazar didn't mention that aspect of the statement of Rava, doesn't that imply that Rabbi Elazar disagrees with it? So we're going to now offer two possible interpretations to address this issue. The first is the simplest. Epoch, well, just go ahead and reverse it. And we'll say that when Rabbi Elazar made his statement, he wasn't saying his statement consistent with Rava, he was saying his statement consistent with Abaye. Or the Ibayis Ema la'olam lo tape. Really don't reverse it. And Amar Lach, Rabbi Elazar would explain to you, no, that with respect to that statement, ki Amri Anna, when I said that, Delo Sagila Baget, Ella Deboy Nami Chalitza, I was only saying that to indicate that if in fact, after Levi performed Mamar with Rachel, Levi decides, you know what, I really don't want to do Yibum with Rachel. And so as a result, what steps does he need to divorce her? That it isn't sufficient with a get. That is what he's saying. He's saying that Mamar only is a good acquisition with respect to rejecting a sister of Rachel, but it's not enough with respect to allowing Levi to get away with only giving a get to Rachel. So, but okay, yes, you have a question?
I just wasn't sure from like when we're saying from like lidchot betzara, you said that refers to a sister.
Yes, it literally, obviously, it means to refer. It's rejecting a rival, but a Rashi understands this as talking about a situation where it's a rival sister. That the point is that it's a little confusing, the language, but it's definitely referring to where a sister now comes. So the sister gets rejected, but Rachel gets to stay married. Unlike what Beit Hillel would say, where Beit Hillel would say that they both get rejected as a result. They both have to go away because of the fact that both of them are, because they're sisters that both came into, both have a Zika relationship at the same time. Okay, so now, as for lachlos b'nechasim, the lo kani mi amrei, but when it came to talking about how we divide the property, did I say anything? No, I didn't speak about that at all. And so as a result, I can be totally consistent with Rava. All right, so now what we've seen is we've got the positions, 4 different positions with respect to the machlokes. We've got Ula, Rabba, Abaye, and Rava. And we said that there are 2 positions, Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, that are like Rava and Abaye. So now we're going to provide almost for sure the some aspect of the psak. Okay. All right. So anyway, but we're going to say now, Rav Papa says, "Diuka de maslisin kivase de Abaye." That actually, if you read it carefully, so then it is the words of the Mishnah make sense like Abaye. Afalgaf de kashya mesa. Even though at the same time there is one difficulty with Abaye, and it's the same difficulty that we saw with respect to Ula, and that is, why do you need to have the second case involve the death of Rachel? Okay, and so we'll explain that in a moment. So first, let's explain why the Mishnah seems to be consistent with Abaye. Because when we said in our Mishnah, we referred to property, we said property that enters and leaves with her. So my nichnasin umay yotzin, what does it mean that it enters and leaves with her? Lav nichnasin l'rishus habal b'yotzin l'rishus habal l'shuv l'rishus ha'av. Isn't this a reference to property that goes to the husband and then leaves the husband and goes back to the father of the bride, father of Rachel? So the afal gav, so as a result, the point is that in that second case, where it's implying that it was actually part of her marriage, right? It actually went into the wedding and then left. And so that makes sense that we say that the second case involves when Rachel has died, we're talking about where she inherited the property when she was still married to Reuven, because the property is property that went into the marriage and then has left the marriage. Whereas if she had only inherited it after the marriage, then it wouldn't be appropriate to call it nichnasim v'yotzinima. it wouldn't be, because it didn't actually go into the marriage with her, because she didn't inherit it until after her husband was dead. So that's the good part. That's the part that is consistent with Abaye. Now the problem, the avagav de kasha mesa. Now, what does it mean that we say that it's difficult that it was she died? So adamivlagi beguva la'achar misa. Let her argue about it herself rather than after her death. I'm sorry. Rather than argue about her and after her death, meaning the first case is about her and the second case is about after her death, argue about her and the produce, the sulomidi, and you won't need to say anything more. We would understand how the cases relate. And so that is a bit of a problem according to Abaye. Okay, so that now we've ended up with 4 different readings, and indeed, for 2 of the readings, for the reading, was it the reading of Ula or the reading of? For 2 of the readings, we actually noted how there is a consistency in our Mishnah that I guess it was both for Rabbah and for Abaye. We noted how a precise reading of the Mishnah seems to indicate that we have aspects of the Mishnah that are consistent with those 2 readings. In any event, we are now ready to go to the last case of our Mishnah. And in the last case of our Mishnah, we said, Knasa harehi, what does it say? Harehi, let me find it. Sorry. Right? Harehi ki ishto l'chol davar. Right? We said that if they marry, if Chaim marries Rachel and performs Yibum with Rachel, so they're considered married for everything. L'may helchasa. What is it telling us? What are you trying to clarify here? So I'm Rabbi Yossi Baruch Hanina, Lomar shemigarsha beget. It's telling us that you two rules. One is that if Chaim now wants to divorce Rachel, he needs to give her a get. And the second rule, umachazira, and if he divorces her, he has the ability to remarry her. In general, we say that a man who divorces his wife can remarry her as long as she hasn't married somebody else in the interim. Obviously, that does not apply to a Kohen, but in any event, the point is that and now we're going to say Megarsha beget pshita. Isn't it? We're going to say with respect to each of these, aren't they obvious laws? And we're going to explain why they are not obvious. So one is that you have to divorce her with a get. Isn't that obvious? So salkadai techamina. No, it's not obvious, because I might have thought, since the Torah says that you need to take her as a wife and perform yibum with her, so I might have thought, Amar Rachman, the Torah is telling us, that as long as you're married to her, it is like you are still doing yibum. So as a result, how do you end yibum? So b'chalitza in begat lo. I might have thought that the way you end yibum is with chalitza. Just as at the very beginning you end it with a chalitza, maybe you would end it in the middle with, or after some time, with a chalitza. Kamash Malan. So that's why the Mishnah is telling us that specifically you need a get. Umaxira, we said that that he can take her back. Again, pshita, isn't it obvious? Of course, you can always take your wife back after you divorce her if she hasn't had relations with somebody else. Well, I might have thought, no, maybe in this case you don't get to take her back. Why? Because mitzvah deramya rachmana alei avda. When he took her the first time, he was doing a mitzvah. Hashta take him away the Isser Eshesach. But now maybe she should be considered back to being his brother's wife, meaning that of course he was Reuven's wife, and therefore he shouldn't be allowed to marry her again. Kamash Malan. So therefore, the fact that we now treat her as the new wife, it tells us that that in fact he can take her back. 1 second. That made a lot of sense that we should maybe go back to treating her like the brother's wife, and as a result, saying that she can't be married again. Maybe we really should say that. Amar Kra Ulkacha Lo Leisha. The pasuk says that he's going to take her for a wife for himself, meaning Kevin Shalakacha. Once he takes her, Harehi Keishto L'chol Davar. So she is like his wife for everything, and that includes the ability to divorce her and take her back as long as she has not had relations with somebody else. So the final thing that we said in our Mishnah was Uvilvad Shetei Ksubasa, that the ksuva needed to be one that the ksuva needed to be was al nichse bala harishon, that the ksuva, the only exception was that the ksuva is still an obligation of the first husband. So my time, what's the reason that it's an obligation of the first husband? Isha hiknu lo min hashamayim. So the reason is because Chaim never really intended to marry Rachel. It was set up from heaven, meaning the God ended up having Reuven die. And so as a result, that's the only reason that Rachel ended up being married to Chaim. And so as a result, we're not going to put an obligation on him. However, the Isleisla min harishon, what happens if the first husband doesn't have anything? So takinu la misheni, we're going to say that the second husband needs to write a ksuva for her. Why? Because you don't want to make it easy to get divorced. The Jewish religion puts a tremendous emphasis on marriage, and so as a result, we say that we don't want to make it easy to get divorced, and so therefore we're going to say to Chaim that, listen, Reuven didn't have any funds that are sufficient to protect Rachel, and so as a result, we need you, Chaim, to provide that protection, and that way you will be a good husband and will feel a sense of commitment to the marriage. Okay, mitzvah. Now we go to the next Mishnah, and this is a Mishnah that we've seen previously, and so the Mishnah is going to talk about who has priority and what do we prioritize. How, meaning we're going to see. We'll do the first three words. Mitzvah v'gadol liyabim. The eldest brother of Reuven is the one who has the obligation to perform yibum. So we see just in those three words two prioritizations. One is a prioritization of the eldest brother, and the second is the prioritization of yibum over chalitza. So now we're going to read the rest of the Mishnah, and then the Gemara will address what happens if those prioritizations conflict. So lo ratza, what if the oldest brother is not willing? So we'll see what that means in the Gemara. Mahalkin al kol ha'achim, we're going to go to the other brothers. Lo ratzu, if they're not willing, chosrin eitzel gadol, we go back to the eldest brother. Va'omrim lo, alecha mitzvah, you've got the mitzvah, oldest brother. O chalatza yabim, either do chalitza or do yibum. So tala b'katan achi yagdil. Now, if the oldest brother or any brother says, let's wait till our younger brother, who is still a minor, becomes of age so that he can potentially be the one to marry Rachel. over Gadol Achi Yavam Medina Sayam, or Reuben's on a Chaim's on a business trip. He's the oldest brother. Chaim, let's wait till Chaim comes back from overseas, and he's traveling. And of course, we're talking about in the olden days where it's not clear when he's going to get back. And of course, there's no means of communication either. Or maybe let's wait until our brother who is deaf and unable to speak, or is in a bit of craziness at the moment. So and let's wait till they get better. Aim showman low. In all those cases, we do not listen to the brother who says that. Ela omrim lo. Rather, we say to that brother, Alecha mitzvah, you've got the mitzvah. O chalotzo yabim. Either do chalitza or do yibum. Okay, so we've got two basic ideas that are covered in our Mishnah. The first is we have a prioritization for Yibum and for the eldest. And the second is we don't delay. So Itmar, let's take a look and understand. Bias katan, now we're talking, when we see here, it's katan sort of in quotes. It doesn't mean minor, unlike in katan in the Mishnah, so it's a little confusing. Here we're talking about a non-eldest. V'chalitzas gadol. If we have a choice between Yibum by a younger brother and Chalitza by the elder brother, where do we prioritize? So Pligi ba Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. So they argue about it. Chad amar bias katan adifa, v'chad amar Chalitza sad gadol adifa. One says that we give the prioritization to the brother who is to the younger brother, to the one who is doing Yibum, because we want to prioritize Yibum. And the other one says, no, we prioritize the older brother. Because the mitzvah, the main mitzvah to Yibum, we're going to prioritize Yibum over Chalitza. And so even if that means doing it, but with the younger brother. And well, according to the one who prioritizes Chalitza, that's because when the eldest brother is willing to act, so then the youngest brother's action is considered null and void. So, so now we're going to try to prove our case, and we're going to do it by citing our Mishnah. We're going to try first to cite the first part of our Mishnah, then we're going to try to cite the second part of our Mishnah. Then what we're going to do is we're going to reread the machlokas we're going to give an alternative view of the machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, and then we'll do the exact same thing, again, trying to make two proofs out of our Mishnah. So let's take a look. So Tanan, lo ratza, what did our Mishnah say? Our Mishnah said that if the oldest brother was unwilling, machzirin al kol ha'achin, we go to the other brothers. So my lab, lo ratza liyabim ela lachlots, doesn't lo ratza mean that he didn't want to do Yibum, but rather he was willing to do Chalitza. V'katani mahalchin etzel ha'achin, and yet we say you go to the younger brothers. So that shows that we're going to the younger brothers in order to do Yibum, meaning Shma Mina bias katan adifa. Doesn't that show that the Yibum done by a younger brother is prioritized above the Chalitza of the eldest brother? Lo. No, you are not reading our Mishnah correctly if that's your implication, because lo ratza lachalotz v'lo liyabim. No, what it means that he doesn't want to, it means that he doesn't want to do anything. He is lazy. He does not want to do Yibum or Chalitza. And so, de kavase gabi ha'achin, well, then that means that when the other brothers also say lo ratzu, they also mean that they don't want to do Chalitza or Yibum. So then amai chosron etzel hagadol. Why do we return to the eldest brother? Limichpei and force him. Lichve didu. Let's just compel any brother. So kevan de mitzvah ale didei ramya. Since the mitzvah is on him first, lididei kaifinan. So we're going to force him to make a decision. So that was effort number one. And again, it was unsuccessful. So we still don't know, do we prioritize the younger brother's Yibum or the older brother's Chalitza? Tanan, let's take a look at the second half of our Mishnah. Tala b'katan anshi yigdal ein shomen. If we want to wait till the minor becomes old enough, we don't listen to him. Well, the e-bite vs katan adifa, if in fact our prioritization is that a yibum of a katan would be better, amai ain't shomen. Why don't we listen to the person who says wait for the younger brother to become an adult? Nintar dilma gidil v'miyabim. Let's wait, and then he'll get older, and he'll perform yibum. So no, that is not a proof either. That logic. Remember, we also said that we don't listen to somebody who says, let's wait for the eldest brother to get back. Amai, why not? Nintar dilma ase b'chalitz. Maybe he'll come back and do chalitza. Ela kol shehuya mitzvah lo mashhinan. Whenever it comes to delaying a mitzvah, we don't do it. So we do not delay a mitzvah. If we can do it earlier, that's best. And the interesting thing here is we do a mitzvah that is maybe not even the ideal mitzvah. Now, of course, there is here a competing value, and that is the freeing of the wife, the freeing of Rachel and any of her co-wives to allow them to marry whomever they want if chalitza is done. So as a result, that may be a piece of it. But there are those who learn from this Gemara the concept that anytime you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, but you might be able to do it a little bit better in a little while, you should just do the mitzvah right away. And that's just an important thing to think about when it comes to doing mitzvot. So we're going to see that line again in a moment, because now we're going to have on Lamed Tet Amud Bet, as we turn to the page, Ista Amre. There's others who say the following, that the argument was not about what we just said, but rather the via kula almeh lo pligi de bias katan adifa. Everybody agrees that actually the yibum of a minor is a better option. Ki pligi, where do they disagree? The chalitzas katan. That's where they disagree, is when it comes to chalitza. Are we going to prioritize the chalitza of an older brother, or are we going to say that it doesn't make a difference and the chalitza of the younger brother is fine? And this is what they're talking about. Chalitzas katan v'chalitzas gadol. Pligi ba Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. When it comes to chalitza of either the younger or older brother, so that's what they argue about. Chadamar chalitzas gadol adiva, v'chadamar ki adadi ninu. One says that we prioritize getting chalitza from the oldest brother, and the other one says, no, we're going to say that they're equal. Doesn't make a difference. That the one who says that we prioritize the eldest is because that's who the primary mitzvah is on. But the idach and the other one who says, no, we treat them as equal. When it comes to who do we prioritize for yibum, we'll say the eldest. But when it comes to chalitza, we're gonna say that they're actually the same. Okay, so Tanan, now we're gonna try and bring our Mishnah again as a proof to see if we can prove one of these two positions. What did we say at the end of the first case? We said lo ratzu. If the younger brothers are not willing, chozrin eitzel gadol, we go back to the oldest brother. My love, lo ratzu liyabim elalachlots. Doesn't it mean that they didn't want to do yibum, but that rather they were willing to do chalitza? So the Gatani chozrin eitzel gadol, and yet we say that we go to the oldest brother. So doesn't that show ushmamina chalitzas gadol atifa? Doesn't that show that the chalitza of the eldest brother is our priority? No, lo ratzu below lo lachlots below liyabim. No, when it says they don't want to do anything. They don't want to do yibum or chalitza. And so as a result, we go back to the oldest brother to force him. De kavase gabi gadol. And so in that case, by the eldest brother also, lo ratzu, lo lachlots, below layabim. lo ratza means that he doesn't want to do either chalitza or yibum. Well, in that case, ella amai chosren etzel gadol. Why do we bother to go back to the eldest? Lemichbie, let's just force whomever. So lichbie, so lemichbie did who? Why not? Why force the oldest brother? Force any of the brothers. So kaven the mitzvah ale dide ramya. No, since the mitzvah of yibum is on him, we're going to force a decision by him before we force a decision by anybody else. So Tashma, Talab. So now let's go and take a look at the end of our Mishnah and see if that can prove our case. Because what did we say at the end of the Mishnah? Talab begadol ad sheyavo medina siyam. We say that if you wanted to wait until the oldest brother comes from overseas, ain't shomenlo. We don't listen to him. Well, but if you want to say that the chalitza of the eldest brother is what actually it takes priority, amai ain't shomenlo. Why don't we listen? Ninter dilma asi v'chalitz. Let's give him a chance to come back and do chalitza. Well, 1 second. Well, tamech b'katan ad sheyagdil ain't shomenlo. But when it comes to the katan, and we say we don't wait until he gets older, amai, why not? Why not wait? Why do we say that we don't wait? So ninter dilma gadol miyabim. Maybe we should let him get older and he'll actually do yibum. Inami asi ihu miyabme. And moreover, again, he can do yibum, which is even better. Actually, when it comes to the oldest brother, he'll let him come back so he can maybe even do yibum. So the whole point is that where clearly the reason that we don't delay has nothing to do with this prioritization. Ella kosha huya mitzvah lo shehinan. So whenever we have a mitzvah that is something we do not delay to perform. Okay, so now that we've addressed this situation, so and looked at both understandings of our Mishnah, both understandings of this machlokus between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So now we're going to say from our Mishnah, it was clear that we had a preference for Yibum, but we're going to cite another Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Bechoros that says not that way. So Tanan Hassam, we learned in this Mishnah in Bechoros, mitzvahs Yibum kodemes lemitzvahs chalitza. Originally, the mitzvah of Yibum was preferred to the mitzvah of chalitza. Barishonah shahayu miskavnin l'shem mitzvah. That was when everybody's intent was appropriate, and they were doing the Yibum in order to perform the mitzvah. Achshav she'em miskavnin l'shem mitzvah. Now they'll marry the sister-in-law, the former sister-in-law, just because of not pure intents, meaning that it's not just because of the mitzvah, but because she's attractive, because she's a nice person, whatever. But the point is, it's not in order to perform the mitzvah. So Amru mitzvahs chalitza kodemes lemitzvahs yibum. So we say that the mitzvah of chalitza is now the preferred option over the mitzvah of yibum. However, now we're going to cite two different amoraim that show that that yes, maybe chalitza is preferred, but we're not going to force somebody to do chalitza. So the first of those views is Rav. Amar Rav, ein kofin. Yes, chalitza is in fact now the preferred option, but we don't force anybody to do chalitza. Kiyasel kamei de Rav, Amar lahu. When a couple would come, Yavam and Yevamot would come to Rav, he would say to them, Ibais chalotz, ibais yabim. If you want, do chalitza. If you want, do yibum. V'didach talarachmana. God left it up to you. V'im lo yachpotza ish. However, if you don't want, because it says, if you don't want, ha'im chafetz, but if you do want, ibai chaletz, ibai yabim. Right? So you can choose. So although we say we're a little concerned about intentions, Rav would clearly give both options. The Av Rabbi Yehuda Savar Ein Kofin. Similarly, we'll see that Rabbi Yehuda also said we're not going to force the issue and force the person to do chalitza. Mid'atkin Rav Yehuda begita de chalitza. because Rav Yehuda established a special divorce document that would be used in the context of chalitza. And what does it say in that document? Ich plonis bas ploni. We have this daughter, this woman, this daughter of so and so. Akravat yas ploni yevamot kadmana livedina. That Rachel brought her yavam to this court. V'ishtama'udino the achua the misna be'aba ninhu. And we showed and we recognized that this guy Chaim, he is in fact the brother of the dead deceased husband Ruvain from the father, meaning that that Ruvain and Chaim share a father. The Amrile, and we said to Chaim, eats obviously yabim yabim. If you want to do yibum, do yibum. V'ilo itlo la raglech demina. If you don't want to do yibum, and now this for the very first time in all of Yevamos, we get some of the process. We say to him, stick out your right foot. V'itlo la ragla demina. And then what did he do? He extended his right foot, showing that he wanted to do chalitza. Ushras seine mi al regalui. And she took off his shoe. V'yarkat v'anpui ruka de mischazia lebeidina al ara. And then she spat on the ground in front of him with spit that we could see. Rabbi Chia bar Avia. Okay, and that's the end of the quote of this document. But of course, what was important in this document? It was that we told the Yavam that if you want to do Yibum, do Yibum. So that's the proof that Rav Yehuda, again, Rav Yehuda the Amora, also agrees with Rav that we would give them the option. Rabbi Chia bar Avia Messiah be Mishmei de Rav Yehuda. Rav Chia would also conclude the document saying that this is what Rav Yehuda also intended. The Akrinu Madaksiv B'Sefer Oraisa de Moshe. And then we had them read what was, or say what is written in the Torah. Namely, they would read the document, they would read the psukim associated with the mitzvah of Yibum. Now, what did we mean when we said Ashtmodaihunhu? That we in fact that the Beis Din says they recognized him. Well, Pligi ba Rav Acha v'Ravina. Rav Acha and Ravina argue about it. Chad Amar be'edim, v'chad Amar afilu karav afilu isha. Nah, one said it was witnesses. You need valid witnesses, while the other said, nah, don't even bother with full witnesses. All you need is even a relative, one relative, or even a woman. Anybody can testify. This is not true testimony. And in fact, that's exactly the case, that we just say that it's revealing the truth. And in fact, even a relative can do it. So all of this suggests that maybe we do allow both chalitza and yibum. And although we had that Mishnah that seemed to deprioritize yibum, so maybe right now we've left things with you can do either. Well, we'll stay tuned tomorrow as we will see what in fact the actual intention is for with respect to our prioritization of yibum and chalitza. And of course, we just to foreshadow it, we are going to prioritize chalitza bisman hazeh. So that is the story. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Kasher B'Sameach. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Have a fabulous, fabulous Pesach. And God willing, I will pick up again on Monday at 7:30 in the morning.